I thought I knew my family, but when my sister Emily demanded that I become a surrogate for her baby, the nightmare began. She didn't just want help. She wanted to control my life. And when I said no, she started a war. Blackmail, rumors, family betrayals, anything to break me. But I hid my trump card that made them regret it. My name's Katelyn Morris. I'm 34, and I live in Portland, Oregon, a city where rain isn't just weather, it's part of your soul. Coffee shops on every corner smell of fresh ground beans, and the streets hum with bicycle bells and car horns. My life is morning runs along the Willamette River, when fog still clings to the water and the city's just waking up. It's the scent of sweat and rubber in the fitness studio where I'm a personal trainer, helping people find strength they didn't know they had. It's evenings with my laptop, planning workouts over cold tea, and rare quiet moments staring at stars from my apartment window, wondering, what if I could be something more? My apartment's my little world, perched on the top floor of an old brick building in Hawthorne. The walls are lined with photos from marathons. I've run 5, and each medal hanging on a hook jingles if I brush past. Nearby are posters with quotes like, "You're stronger than you think," which I reread when doubts whisper louder than reason. On the windowsill sits a cactus named Spike, my only pet because he doesn't need care and survives my forgetful watering. In the corner, a stack of worn sneakers, each pair a chapter of my life. I'm not the white picket fence, 2 kids, and a Labrador type, but I've always wanted to leave a mark, not in history or on a magazine cover, but in someone's heart, in their smile after a workout when they say, "I did it." I grew up in Portland's suburbs, in a house with a green lawn Dad mowed every Saturday, and a creaky backyard swing where I dream of adventures for hours. My family looked perfect. Mom baked apple pies that smelled like home. Dad fixed cars in his shop, humming Bob Dylan, and my older sister, Emily, was the star our little universe orbited. 5 years older, everything about her was flawless. Long blonde hair, a confident smile that made people listen. She knew what she wanted. A top college, a successful husband, kids, a house with floor-to-ceiling windows and a pristine lawn. Me? I was the kid splashing in puddles in yellow rain boots, asking why stars don't fall, dreaming of dragons. My parents called it a phase, smiled and waited for me to grow up. They expected a lawyer, a doctor, or at least a banker's wife. Spoiler, I never became that grown-up they pictured. Training's not just a job. It's my passion, my way to breathe. I see a woman too scared to lift a barbell, smile after a month, beaming at her reflection in the studio mirror. I hear a guy who came in defeated start joking post-workout because he feels alive for the first time. I love when clients gasp, "Katelyn, I didn't think I could." But outside the studio, I often feel invisible, especially next to Emily, whose life's like a perfectly filtered Instagram postcard. She's got Mark, a financial consultant with a toothpaste ad smile, a house in posh Lake Oswego, and an account with tens of thousands of followers sharing smoothie recipes, family pics, and harmony quotes. Me, I've got Spike, a sneaker collection, and a habit of falling asleep with my laptop planning workouts. Sometimes I scroll her posts and wonder, am I falling behind? Then I run along the waterfront, wind hitting my face, and realize, my life's my choice. I was happy, or thought I was, until everything changed. It started in December at a family dinner at my parents' house to kick off Christmas. Snow fell softly outside, blanketing the lawn, and the dining room smelled of roasted turkey, cinnamon, and Mom's signature cranberry sauce. The table was draped in a white cloth embroidered with reindeer, centered with a vase of thyme branches, red berries, and tiny cones Mom foraged. Twinkling garlands cast warm shadows, and jingle bells played from an old radio. Emily glowed in a red dress hugging her perfect figure, her hair in soft curls like a magazine shoot. Mark held her hand, his dark suit pristine, his smile like he knew all eyes were on them. Mom fussed, piling seconds on plates, while Dad, in his plaid shirt, shared a story about a client's rare '67 Mustang. I sat in the corner, sipping cheap supermarket wine Mom bought for the vibe. My reindeer sweater, a gift from Aunt Susan, was itchy, but I wore it because Mom loves family looks. I nodded at Dad's stories, but my mind was elsewhere. In the studio, planning a marathon program, or on the waterfront, where I'd run that morning, despite the chill. Emily cleared her throat, and everyone went quiet, like she'd flipped a switch. She always commanded attention, with a tilt of her head, a soft smile promising something big. She announced she and Mark wanted a baby, but there was a catch. After years of trying, doctors said she couldn't carry. Her voice wavered, but her eyes stayed dry, and when they locked on mine, direct, almost demanding, my heart sank. Not just for her words, but for how she looked at me, like I was part of a plan I didn't yet know. I tried catching Mark's gaze, hoping for support, but he stared at Emily like she was a masterpiece. Mom gasped, Dad frowned, and the wine turned bitter in my mouth. Emily kept talking about her dream, their pain, their solution. Then she turned to me, her blue eyes, cold as winter sky, bored into mine. She didn't say it aloud, but I knew what was coming. Later, washing dishes in the cramped kitchen smelling of lemon detergent and leftover sauce, she pulled me aside. Her manicured fingers gripped my elbow, and she spoke low, her voice laced with steel that froze me. She wanted me to be their surrogate. I stood holding a wet plate, water dripping onto the linoleum, leaving dark spots. It wasn't a request. It was an expectation, like she'd already decided. She talked about giving life, how it'd bring us closer, how I'd be part of their story. But her words felt rehearsed, like a script she'd practiced in a mirror, and I was an actress with no choice. I mumbled I'd think about it and returned to the dishes, avoiding her eyes. My hands shook, the plate nearly slipped. I felt her stare burning my back until she left for the living room, where Mom was already praising her courage. I stayed alone, wiping plates until the kitchen emptied. Driving home, I cranked the heat, but the chill inside didn't budge. I watched Portland's twinkling lights, thinking, how did I not see this coming? The next weeks were a nightmare I couldn't predict, like a spring tightening inside me. Emily called daily, sometimes twice, her voice alternating between pleading and sharp. She flooded my phone with texts like uninvited guests, articles on surrogacy, with headlines like how to give happiness, photos of smiling families with newborns, links to clinics in Portland, Seattle, even California. She sent long messages about how this would change everything, how I'd be their hero, but her words carried demand, not gratitude, like I already owed her. Mom joined the campaign, her voicemails a daily ritual of pain. I listened, standing by my window with cold tea, watching rain pound Hawthorne's roofs. She reminded me how Emily defended me in school when kids teased me for my glasses and comic reading habit. How she shared her allowance when I spent mine on paints and sketchbooks. You know how she dreams of a baby, Mom said, her voice thick with disappointment, like I'd already failed her. She talked about Emily crying at night, Mark holding on for her, always adding, we're all counting on you, Katelyn. Those words were stones she tossed without looking. Dad was quieter, but his sighs at family dinners spoke volumes. He'd peer over his glasses like I was a busted engine part he couldn't fix. Once, as Mom served casserole, he muttered about family duty, but didn't meet my eyes. His silence pressed like heavy air before a storm. I tried explaining I wasn't ready. I sat with Emily at a cafe, smelling of vanilla and fresh pastries, searching for words. I said I had work, clients, a marathon in 3 months I'd trained for, waking at 5 a.m. to run in rain. I explained surrogacy wasn't just help, but a huge responsibility that it'd change my body, career, life. My words drowned in her expectations. She looked at me like a kid who didn't get the assignment, saying I was over-dramatizing. Her smile was sharp as a blade, cutting with every word. Emily started controlling my life like I'd already agreed. She criticized my diet, saying I ate too many carbs for a future surrogate. She sent lists: broccoli, salmon, avocado, and sleep schedules I should follow. Once, she booked me a doctor's appointment without asking, texting the clinic's address with a heart emoji. For your own good. I canceled it, my heart pounding with rage. How dare she decide for me? A worst moment was at the studio. I was leading a morning workout, clients stretching on mats, music blaring, drowning out the rain. I spotted Emily at the door, arms crossed, in a perfect beige coat, like she was at a business meeting, not a sweaty gin. Her face was calm, but her eyes were predatory, like she knew her prey was close. She wanted to discuss the plan. I took her to the storage room, snowing of cleaning supplies and stacked with dumbbells and old mats. She handed me a folder with a schedule: gluten-free diet, bi-weekly tests, no coffee, alcohol, or running, because it stresses the body. It included cutting work hours to focus on health. My fists clenched, anger choking me. This wasn't a request. It was an order, written in her neat handwriting on thick paper. I said I hadn't decided. Her face darkened, lips thinning, fingers gripping her purse strap. She left, calling me selfish, thinking only of myself. The door slammed, leaving me staring at the folder she'd left. That night, I didn't sleep, watching Spike on the windowsill, a silent witness to my turmoil. I felt cornered, like my life wasn't mine anymore. I looked at my medals and wondered, when did I lose the right to choose? By Christmas, the pressure was unbearable, like an avalanche stealing air and light. My parents hosted their traditional dinner, decked with garlands, red ribbons, and fake snow on windows. I hoped for a break, a night of mom's apple pie, neighbor gossip, and pretending everything was fine. Instead, I walked into a trial where I was defendant, jury, and accused, with no defense. The table was set with care. Floral china, silver forks Mom saved for holidays, crystal candlesticks casting warm shadows. A golden turkey sat center, surrounded by mashed potatoes, green beans, and cranberry sauce. Garlands twinkled, reflecting in wine glasses, and silent night drifted from the living room. But the air was heavy, electric, like before a storm. Emily sat across, her curls perfect, red dress highlighting her fragility, like a Christmas movie heroine. Mark held her hand, suit flawless, smile knowing. Emily spoke first, her voice soft but steely. She shared their plan, how they wanted a baby, and how I could give them joy. She spoke of me like a done deal, like I'd signed a contract, passed tests, and was waiting for their nod. She called surrogacy a miracle, a gift I could give. Her eyes gleaming, not with tears, but calculation. Mom nodded, beaming with pride, already picturing a grandkid. Dad stared at his plate, brows furrowed, but didn't object. Mark smiled like it was settled, and my cheeks burned with humiliation. I tried changing the topic, asking about Mark's new project at his finance firm, but Emily pressed on. She pulled out a gift wrapped in gold paper with a red bow and handed it to me. I opened it, hoping for something simple, a scarf, a candle. Instead, it was a book on surrogacy, a smiling woman cradling a baby on the cover. The subtitle read, "Giving Life, the Highest Honor." My fingers froze, a lump in my throat. This wasn't a gift. It was manipulation, poison in pretty wrapping. I muttered thanks and stuffed it in my bag, avoiding her eyes, but felt every stare at the table. After dinner, Mom pulled me into the living room, smelling of pine candles and old books. The room was warm, but I shivered like I stood in a gale. She spoke of family duty, how Emily suffered, how she held us together. Her words were soft but sharp, needling my skin. She reminded me how Emily helped with homework in high school, stood up to neighborhood bullies. "You can do this for her," she said, eyes hopeful but judgmental. Dad joined, his heavy steps echoing on the wood floor. He said they'd cover all costs, including compensation for my time, like I was a rental car. Their words felt like a deal, and I was the product they were haggling over. I left without a goodbye. In my car, I blasted the radio to drown their voices echoing in my head. But they followed, in every note, every streetlight, every creaky turn. I parked at home and sat in the dark, watching neighbors' garlands twinkle. My hands gripped the wheel, a mix of anger, pain, and fear swelling in my chest. I knew I couldn't keep living like this, but I didn't know how to break free. I said no in January, after a workout sitting on a bench in Laurelhurst Park, staring at a frozen lake glazed with ice. Cold air bit my cheeks, but I didn't notice. My thoughts were too loud. My phone buzzed with Emily's texts, but I ignored them, knowing they held another article or reminder of her dream. I called her and said I wouldn't be their surrogate. My voice shook, but I held firm, repeating words I'd practiced all night in my bathroom mirror. I explained it was too much responsibility, that I wasn't ready to sacrifice my body, career, freedom. I said I loved her, but couldn't be part of her plan. She was silent for seconds, and I almost believed she understood. Then she exploded. Her voice was a storm, sharp accusations pelting like hail. She called me selfish, said I was ruining her dream, that I never understood family. She screamed I owed her for everything: school years, her support, her love she now revoked like a discarded gift. I hung up, tears burning, but I didn't let them fall. I sat on the bench, staring at the lake, trying to breathe, but the air felt too heavy. Mom called the next day. Her tone was colder than the lake's ice. She said I broke Emily's heart, failed everyone, wasn't the daughter they hoped for. Her words were a slow knife, letting me feel every inch of pain. Dad texted, "We thought you were better." Short, but each word a hammer blow. I didn't reply. I deleted their messages and turned off my phone. But the silence in my apartment was louder than their words. I expected anger, but not what followed. Emily launched a campaign, subtle yet devastating, like slow-acting poison. She told relatives I refused to help my sister. Aunt Susan, always kind, called to talk about my priorities. She spoke of family values, urging me to think bigger, her voice dripping with disappointment, like I'd stolen from her. Cousin Jake posted in the family chat that I was too self-obsessed, adding a rolling eyes emoji that stung like a slap. Even my clients whispered, "Some new mark," and rumors spread like ripples on water. I felt the ground slip away. My studio, my sanctuary, now felt like a place where every glance was suspicious, every whisper an accusation. I kept training, running, living, but each step was heavier. I'd lie in bed, staring at my medals, wondering, what am I fighting for? I thought it was over. I was wrong. Emily didn't stop at family gossip. She escalated to public humiliation, a knife in the back when I wasn't looking. In early February, I noticed my social media losing followers. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds. I checked my posts, vibrant workout pics, motivational quotes, marathon videos, and found comments from anonymous accounts. "Don't trust her. She's not who she seems," one wrote. "Heard she's got legal issues," another added. I deleted them, but they sprouted like weeds. My account, built over years to promote my studio, started crumbling like a house of cards. After a workout, a client, Linda, who trained with me for 2 years, approached. She always came to morning sessions smiling, even half asleep. But that day, she avoided my eyes and asked if I had a hidden past. My heart sank, like the floor vanished. I explained they were rumors, no secrets, but her smile was forced, a mask. She didn't show up the next week. 3 more clients ghosted, ignoring my texts. I felt my studio, my world, shrinking, walls closing in to crush me. I knew Emily was behind it. I confronted her at Bean and Leaf, where she met friends. She sat at a corner table, sipping latte with perfect foam, her phone glowing with notifications. Her hair was in a high bun, her white blouse worth more than my wardrobe. I didn't yell or make a scene. I sat across and said I knew it was her. My words were quiet but steel. She didn't deny it, just shrugged, saying I forced her to extreme measures. Her voice was calm, almost bored, scarier than a shout. I stood and left, rage boiling, but I couldn't let it win. I started collecting evidence, screenshots of comments, call logs, client texts asking about rumors. I didn't know what to do with it, but I knew I couldn't just wait for her to destroy my reputation. I fell asleep with my laptop, scrolling my accounts, and woke feeling watched. I looked at Spike, thinking, how far will she go? Mid-February, I got a letter that flipped everything. It came in a thick white envelope with gold embossing, like from another world. Inside was a contract from Emily and Mark's lawyer. 10 pages of fine print outlined an offer. I'd be their surrogate. They'd pay $50,000 for my services, plus medical costs, tests, visits, even discomfort compensation. But one clause stopped me cold. I'd sign a confidentiality agreement and waive all rights to the child, even in complications, legal disputes, or death. That word, death, sat on the page like a verdict. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the letter. My hands shook, coffee gone cold, Spike watching from the windowsill like he was asking, what now? This wasn't just a contract. It was an attempt to buy me, chain me to their plan. I remembered Emily always getting the best doll, bike, pie slice as a kid. Now she wanted me, not as a sister, but a tool. I called the lawyer, a man with a low, cold voice, and refused. I kept my tone steady, but inside I was raging. He said Emily's very upset and they'd explore all options. His tone hinted this was a pause, not an end. A week later, Emily showed up at my place. I was sorting mail in my living room when the door creaked. She walked in, using an old key I'd forgotten to take back, my heart jumping. She looked wrecked. Dark circles, hair in a messy bun, coat rumpled. A disaster for her. But her eyes burned with resolve, like someone unaccustomed to losing. She begged me to reconsider, saying it was her last chance. Doctors gave them little time. She wouldn't survive my refusal. Her voice shook, but I saw her gauge my reaction, testing how far she could push. Then she said something that stopped my heart. If you don't, I'll tell everyone you lied about your past. I froze. She meant a mistake from youth, a college party where I got in trouble with cops. I was 19, drank too much at a dorm bash, and got nabbed for disturbing the peace after someone called the police over noise. I paid a $200 fine, case closed, and told no one but Emily, trusting her in a weak moment. She knew this could tank my career. Fitness is all about reputation. One hint of scandal, and clients bolt, sponsors vanish, studios empty. I kicked her out, but her words lodged like a splinter. I didn't sleep, staring at my ceiling where streetlights danced. I recalled that party. Cheap beer, friends' laughter, flashing cop lights. I was young, dumb, paid for it. Why was she weaponizing it? I knew she wasn't bluffing, and I knew I had to protect myself. But how? I decided to dig. If Emily could blackmail me, she had secrets behind her perfect smile. I recalled oddities. Her nerves when I'd asked about money. Whispered calls, dodging talk of finances, or her blog. I started asking questions. Careful, like walking on thin ice. I contacted Mark's old coworker, Sarah, who'd left his finance firm. We met at a Pearl District cafe, smelling of cinnamon and pastries, windows fogged from rain. Sarah was wary, fidgeting with her scarf, but after a second latte, she spilled. Emily and Mark were in trouble. Not just with kids, with cash. I pieced together a puzzle like a cheap novel's detective. Through an old friend, Laura, who worked at a bank, I learned the truth. Emily and Mark were drowning in debt. Their Lake Oswego house, car, her designer bags and shoes, all on credit. Cards maxed out, mortgage 3 months behind. But there was a twist I didn't expect. They planned to use surrogacy to snag a $100,000 grant from a charity for couples with fertility issues. The grant required my agreement and a signed contract, making me their tool. They'd use the money not just for a kid, but to clear debts, keeping their perfect lifestyle. I was stunned. My hands shook reading statements Laura secretly copied. This wasn't just control. It was a scam, with me as a pawn and Emily the puppeteer. I gathered evidence. Texts, bank records, a recorded talk with Sarah I made while pretending to check my phone. I didn't want war, but I was ready to defend myself. I hired a lawyer, Lisa Carter, a sharp woman with a firm voice who looked like she could win against the devil. It cost nearly all my savings, but I had no choice. In her office, smelling of leather and coffee, I could finally breathe. While Lisa prepped legal papers, I faced a new blow that nearly broke me. Late February, I got an email from a local gym I partnered with for workouts. They regretted ending our contract over reputation concerns. No details, but I knew Emily's hand. She'd made good on her threat, spreading lies about my dark past. I checked local fitness groups online and found a post in one, anonymous, but clearly about me. Beware trainers hiding convictions, it read, with dozens of gossipy comments below. I sat in my apartment, staring at my laptop, feeling my world collapse. My clients, studio, reputation, years of work were at risk over a mistake I made at 19. I recalled that night. Beer stench, friends' laughter, cop lights flashing. I was young, stupid, paid my dues. Why was Emily using it against me? I called Lisa about the rumors. She was calm, her voice granite. She suggested a defamation suit, but warned it'd be costly and slow. I couldn't lose everything, but I couldn't let Emily win. I decided to fight, not in court yet. I wrote a blog post, owning my mistake. I didn't name Emily, but said someone was using my past to ruin me. I posted it, bracing for the worst, but got a wave of support. Lost clients messaged they'd return. Strangers shared stories of mistakes and redemption. I cried reading them, tears of relief. But Emily doubled down. She pitched an anonymous story to a local paper about a trainer with a shady past. I didn't know how far she'd go, but I knew I had to stay ahead. In early March, I found an unexpected ally who changed the game. Megan O'Connor, a client, lawyer, and single mom of 2, was tall, with red hair and a blunt way of speaking that was both intimidating and inspiring. She noticed I'd grown quieter, my smiles rarer, my jokes sparse. After a session, when the studio emptied and rain tapped the windows, she stayed and asked if I was okay. I didn't plan to spill, but words poured out like a dam breaking. I told her everything. Emily's pressure. Megan listened, green eyes locked on mine. Then she offered help. She knew media folks who could share my story anonymously, exposing Emily's manipulation without outing me. She connected me with a support group for women facing family pressure. Meetings were in a small Portland office, smelling of herbal tea and old paper. I heard stories of sisters demanding too much, parents seeing only usefulness, brothers taking without giving. Sitting in that circle, clutching a paper teacup, I felt less alone for the first time in months. Megan also helped trace the anonymous accounts spreading rumors. We found one linked to Emily's friend Claire, a marketer with access to fake profiles. This wasn't just sisterly rage, it was a planned attack, like a military op. We gathered proof, screenshots, IP addresses, Claire's work emails sent by mistake. Megan said it could support a lawsuit, but suggested another path: public exposure. She pitched a local journalist who covered family conflicts an anonymous story about a sister using blackmail. I agreed, insisting my name stay out. The article hit Portland Post a week later. No names, but it nailed the situation. A sister demanding surrogacy, blackmail, financial schemes. Comments exploded. People shared stories, condemned the anonymous sister, demanded justice. I knew Emily read it because she stopped texting. But I also knew it'd enrage her more. The article was a spark, but it unleashed a storm I didn't expect. Emily didn't back down. She doubled down. Attack her best defense. Days later, Aunt Susan from Eugene called, sobbing, saying Emily told the family I was lying about her, ruining her life for attention. She claimed the article was my revenge, that I hired the journalist to shame her. I tried explaining I didn't name names, just protected myself. But Susan didn't listen. "You've always been stubborn," she said. Hanging up, the family chat erupted. Cousin Jake said I'd crossed all lines. Aunt Linda, barely known, sent a long text about shaming the family. Even Dad, usually silent, wrote, "This isn't our way, Katelyn." Mom called thrice daily, leaving accusatory voicemails. "You made Emily suffer. How can you be so cruel?" I didn't reply, but each call bruised my soul. The worst was yet to come. Emily contacted my landlord, claiming I was an unreliable tenant with legal issues. No proof, but her calls sowed doubt, and he started asking questions. I explained it was a lie, but saw suspicion in his eyes. My life felt like a house losing bricks from its foundation. I met Megan at a park, sitting on a bench, watching kids splash in puddles. I told her about the landlord, the chat, how I was losing everything. She took my hand and said I had to choose, back down or go all in. Backing down meant letting Emily win. I chose to fight. We devised a plan. Megan pitched the journalist a follow-up with evidence. We sent anonymous copies of statements, texts, and my recorded talk with Sarah, proving Emily's debts and blackmail. I wrote an open letter on my blog, no names, but clear I wouldn't let my life be ruined. I posted it, knowing it might end my family ties. In late March, I did the unexpected. I invited my family to meet. Not at my parents', but a neutral spot, Artisan Brew, a downtown cafe with local art on walls and the scent of fresh coffee and vanilla. I chose a corner table by a window, rain streaking the glass, for a sense of privacy. I wanted it on my terms, no homey comfort as their weapon. Emily came with Mark, her face pale, eyes red like she hadn't slept. Mom and Dad followed, steps heavy, faces tense. They looked wary but smug, like I was surrendering. I set a folder on the table, weeks in the making. Inside, proof of their debts, the grant, rumors, anonymous accounts, Claire's texts. I didn't yell or accuse. I said I knew the truth about their money troubles, the grant, how they tried to buy me, then destroy me when I refused. I said I'd sue for defamation and fraud if they didn't stop, my evidence already with my lawyer. My voice was calm, but I trembled inside like a leaf in wind. Emily paled, fingers gripping the table, knuckles white. Mark stared at the floor, cheeks flushed, hands shredding a napkin. Mom tried objecting, saying I misunderstood. They just wanted to help Emily. But her voice faltered when I showed their credit statements. Dad stayed silent, eyes glued to the folder like it was new. I stood and left, leaving the folder. Rain stung my face as I walked to my car, but I smiled. Emily didn't stop right away. She tried justifying herself in the family chat, claiming I exaggerated, used her pain for attention. But relatives started asking questions. Aunt Susan called, apologizing for believing rumors, saying Emily had too much ambition, her voice regretful. Jake deleted his texts and messaged privately, admitting he overreacted. Mom sent a short text. "We were wrong. Can we talk?" I didn't reply. Not from anger, but because I wasn't ready. I cut contact with Emily and Mark. With my parents, I kept it minimal. Brief calls to check on them, texts about family stuff. I focused on my life. I won back clients, launched an online fitness course that took off. I started a blog on boundaries, self-respect, and saying no. My followers grew. So did my confidence. I got letters from women thanking me for courage. One, Anna from Tacoma wrote, "You showed me I can say no to my family, even if they call me selfish." I read her words, smiling, warmth spreading in my chest. One day, Emily emailed. She said she and Mark were in therapy. She regretted how things went. She asked to meet, to explain. I didn't reply. Not from spite, but because my forgiveness was for me, not her. I let her go, but didn't let her back in. I looked at her email on my table, thinking, maybe she's changed? Then I remembered her cold eyes in the cafe and knew I wasn't ready to risk it. A year's passed. I run mornings, train, write. Spike's still alive. I'm starting to think he's immortal. My apartment feels bigger, filled with me. My ideas, dreams, victories. I didn't become a mom, but I'm a mentor to dozens of women sharing their stories. I learned to say no without guilt, fear, or justifying. I learned to be me, even if it meant being alone. I started volunteering at a women's shelter, leading workouts for trauma survivors. Every Friday, I see their faces light up after their first push-up or mile. One, Layla, with a quiet voice and wrist scars, said she felt alive for the first time in years. I smiled, hugged her, tears burning. It's not surrogacy, but it's a gift. Not life, but strength. And it's mine. Sometimes I think of Emily. I heard she and Mark sold their Lake Oswego house to pay debts. They moved to a downtown apartment. Her Instagram humbler. Fewer filters, more honesty. No more designer bags. Her posts are about new beginnings. I don't gloat. I just live. I see her posts and wonder, is she learning? But I don't reach out. Not from hate, but because my life's mine now. I'm at my table, watching the sunset. The sky's streaked pink, orange, purple, and Portland hums below. Cars honk, kids laugh, cafes close, bars open. My life's not perfect, but it's mine. I wonder, was I right to cut them off? Could I have given them a chance? Was I too harsh, too proud? Or did I finally become who I was meant to be? A woman who chooses herself, even if it means losing family. I look at Spike, still prickly on the windowsill, and smile. He's seen it all. My tears, triumphs, sleepless nights. He's silent, but his presence reminds me I made it. My family tried to curse me, but I chose a blessing. My freedom, my strength, my truth. What would you do in my shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments.